It was just past midnight. The city was silent, but under the surface, darkness moved. In a grimy, forgotten industrial zone where warehouses leaned like tired old men and the air reeked of rust and gasoline, something sinister was unfolding. Tonight, the police were going in. A months-long undercover investigation had led them to this exact location, a drug ring responsible for poisoning entire neighborhoods, trafficking not just narcotics, but despair. The SWAT team had their orders. Strike hard. Strike fast. No room for error. Sergeant David Ruiz stood behind the armored truck, his pulse steady but his mind heavy. He had done this many times. Kicked down doors, cleared rooms, seized evidence. But tonight, something gnawed at him, an unshakable tension in his gut. He chalked it up to nerves. Or maybe to the dream he had the night before, a dream where he was chasing something in the dark, but every time he got close, it disappeared into a thick fog. He didn't believe in omens. But maybe he should have. The countdown began. 3, 2, 1. But before the team could breach the door, an unexpected sound tore through the night. A bark, loud, desperate, filled with urgency. The entire team froze. And then, from behind a pile of wooden pallets, emerged a filthy, limping dog. Its fur was so matted it looked like it had never been groomed. Its eyes glinted in the moonlight, wild, alert, terrified. "Get that animal out of here," someone whispered harshly through the calms. But Sergeant Ruiz didn't move. Because in that brief moment when the dog looked straight at him, he saw something he hadn't seen in a long time. If you believe in kindness, second chances, or the loyalty of animals, like this video, drop a comment, and subscribe to Positive Tales. Share this story with someone who needs to be reminded that love and loyalty often come from the most unexpected places. The dog wasn't just barking, it was trying to warn them. It darted toward the side of the warehouse, barking like mad, then turning back, urging anyone, to follow. Ruiz made a snap decision. "Hold position." "I'm checking something," he said into his mic. His team protested, but his instincts screamed louder. He followed the dog. It led him to a narrow passage between two buildings, barely wide enough for a man to walk through. The dog stopped beside a rusted-out service door and pawed at it frantically. Ruiz tried the handle. Unlocked. Gun drawn, he pushed the door open slowly. Inside was pitch black. The air was thick with mildew and motor oil. As his eyes adjusted, he saw something that made his breath catch: 3 children, huddled behind a stack of pallets, their hands tied, mouths gagged, eyes wide with terror. One of them, no older than 7, had tears silently pouring down his cheeks. Ruiz immediately called it in. Within moments, the team rerouted. The raid happened, but differently this time, with caution, coordination, and a new priority: saving those kids. Later, as paramedics loaded the children into ambulances, one of the officers asked Ruiz, "How did you know?" He didn't answer. He just looked toward the alley where the dog had vanished. That night, long after the sirens faded and the paperwork began, Ruiz couldn't sleep. Not because of the bust, he'd done harder missions. But because he couldn't stop thinking about that dog. He returned to the warehouse site before dawn. The city was quiet again. He walked through alleys and under bridges, calling softly. "Hey, buddy, come on out." Then, from under a broken pallet, 2 brown eyes peered out. The dog was still there. Ruiz knelt, offering half of his sandwich. "You saved them," he whispered. The dog limped forward and took the food from his hand. And just like that, something changed in David Ruiz. In the weeks that followed, Ruiz took the dog, now named Ghost, to the vet. The diagnosis was heartbreaking. Ghost had been abused. His ribs had been broken multiple times, his leg had healed incorrectly, and there were burn marks on his flank. The vet suspected he had been used as bait in illegal dogfights. But what no one could explain was why, after so much cruelty from humans, Ghost still chose to save them. Ruiz adopted him. At first, Ghost didn't trust easily. Loud noises made him flinch. He would whimper in his sleep, trembling against the couch. Ruiz, a hardened officer who'd spent years seeing the worst of humanity, found himself sitting on the floor at 2 a.m., whispering gentle words to a broken dog. The irony wasn't lost on him. Ghost wasn't the only one healing. Ruiz had lost his wife 5 years ago. Cancer. Quick and cruel. Since then, he had buried himself in work. Missions. Raids. Paperwork. He avoided going home unless absolutely necessary. But now, for the first time in years, he had a reason to leave the office early. To cook dinner. To sit on the porch. To feel something. One day, Ghost began reacting strangely to people on the street. Not aggressively, but protectively. One particular evening, as Ruiz walked him through a park, Ghost stopped in his tracks and barked toward a man sitting alone. The man turned out to be a former felon, one known to Ruiz, who later admitted he was planning to rob a couple nearby. Somehow, Ghost had known. Word spread quickly. Soon, Ghost became more than a pet. He became part of the team. The department made him an honorary K9. They gave him a custom vest. And more importantly, they used his story to start conversations about recovery, about redemption, about second chances. Ruiz launched a program called Second Watch. It paired police officers dealing with PTSD and burnout with rescued dogs. Ghost was the face of the campaign. Media outlets covered the story. Donations poured in. More officers found solace in the silent loyalty of dogs who, like them, had been through fire and come out scarred, but not broken. Then came the day that made everything come full circle. During a school event, Ruiz and Ghost were doing a meet and greet when a small hand tugged at Ruiz's sleeve. He turned to see a little boy staring up at Ghost with wide, tearful eyes. It was one of the children they had rescued from the warehouse. "I remember him," the boy whispered. "He barked. He saved us." Ruiz nodded, kneeling beside him. "Yeah, buddy. He really did." The boy knelt and hugged Ghost tightly. Ghost, as if understanding, pressed his head into the child's chest and let out a soft whine, almost like a sigh of relief. And in that quiet gymnasium, surrounded by laughter, crayons, and forgotten trauma, a story that began with violence ended in healing. Sometimes, it's not the strongest or the loudest who change the world. Sometimes, it's the broken. The forgotten. The ones who still choose to love, even when they've been given every reason not to. Ghost was more than a stray. He was a bridge between what was and what could be. He reminded an entire city that heroes come in all forms, even four-legged ones, limping out of the shadows with a message only the heart could hear. If this story moved you even a little, please like the video and share it with someone who believes in hope, healing, and the power of second chances. Subscribe to Positive Tales for more unforgettable true stories that prove love never gives up. Special request before you go: what would you have done if you were in Sergeant Ruiz's shoes? And what would you name the dog if you found him? Drop your answers in the comments, we read every single one.